Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor, and this is the S.M.A.R.T Podcast. S.M.A.R.T stands for self-care, for mindful growth, adaptive learning, rhythmic operations, and a thriving community, of course, all based on performance metrics. I'm really happy to have Jay with me today. Welcome. First, I want to acknowledge your service to our country. I know that you had rough beginning as a Marine, and you're still paying the price for that. So I just want to acknowledge that because that is important. That because of people like yourself, I get to speak Dutch and English today, and not German, and I'll never forget that. And my son and my parents are grateful for that particular point. With
Thank you.
that said, our conversation today is going to go into the bucket of adaptive learning. He has a very interesting background as a serial entrepreneur, as a leader, and certainly working out, talking about resilience. We're going to integrate that all into the conversation today. Again, 15, 20 minutes, high energy, but always action packed and key takeaways. Jay, why don't you introduce yourself? And again, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Walter. Thank you for having me here. I look forward to it, and I can feel your energy. But just farm boy from northern Midwest in the Marine Corps. As Walter indicated, serial entrepreneur. I've started many companies. Did corporate work. I've unfortunately been dead 3 times and had very near death issues, which kind of form some of my opinions and outlook and resilience about coming through things. Some things that are tough for somebody, I go like, oh my gosh, that's nothing. So, but other than that, my wife and I are raising twins that are 8 years old now. We've had since they were 3 weeks old. So, on top of that, I'm back in another company that's gone national and going international, and I just look forward to every day. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed that I'm here, that I'm alive. So,
Good for you. And I think if I counted it up, that's six. 3 plus 3 is 6. You have 3 more lives to go. So hopefully you'll make it to 90 or something like that with some quality of life. So let's dive into so being an entrepreneur by creating something means we're solving a problem for somebody that somebody is willing to pay for. So help us understand your methodology of solving a problem. How do you go about doing that?
I believe that most of what I've done in my life with everything I've done is I try to identify a product or a service or a combination that's not either being provided at all, that's in demand or could be in demand, and some people don't know they need it, or look for someone that's not doing a good job at it, doing a poor service or a poor product, or they're not paying attention to customer service. Too many people are worried about their pocketbook. They're worried about the accolades. They're worried about being on top of the number one instead of worrying or not worrying, but being concerned about the client and the customer and fulfilling their needs. If you do that, problem's over. You end up.
So I think that what you say is that at the center of our being as an entrepreneur is our customer, and it is about respect to them and really creating a value for that particular person. So tell us a little bit about as you go through these iterations, right? Because it is I use the saying, fail fast, fail forward. Talk a little bit about the iterations or the iterative process of problem solving to get to the solution that actually can function and produce.
Wow, that's a good one, Walter, because I don't I I I, I want to say this much about the question you've just posed. I don't think a lot of people have a a good concept of what life has to offer and what they have to offer life, and the value of life and time until they've been dead. And I know it's kind of off the charts here a little bit, but that's you just can't do it until you know you're not going to be back, and then all of a sudden you are. So uh, I don't know. I just think you have to look for the problem. Look for, if I understanding your question correctly, uh, more of a what has to be solved. How do you do it? Don't don't give up. Dig. That can be reading. It can be looking. It can be studying. It can be asking. Go to one of your competitors. Go to somebody that's very good at it in another area that they know you won't. I remember many years ago, I drove about 700 miles to talk to somebody that did very good at what I wanted to do, and I'd researched them, and I found out what they did, but I wasn't going to be in their marketplace and they weren't going to be in my marketplace, so they didn't mind sharing with me. But if that's what you're looking for, I think that's the.
Yep. So with that said, it is part of problem solving a problem is trying to scope it correctly, right? Is to
Right.
really understand. Too many people go what we call a mile wide and an inch deep versus an inch wide and a mile deep. So tell me a story about your past, where you came into a company or you helped create a company where you were too diluted in your approach, and that prevented you from being successful cornering a market, versus a story where you were so focused, and maybe that's the company you just told me about just previously, where you have laser focus. Tell us a little bit about those two comparators and why it is important to have a properly scoped, idea around the problem you're trying to solve.
I think that one of them, Walter, would just be one of our last projects that I stopped about 2.5 years ago. Um, my wife, about 8 years ago, 9 years, is 8 years ago, something like that, because we only did it for like 6 years. She said, "Hey, why don't we build a small fishing cabin?" And the problem is you just don't build a small fishing cabin because you can't sell it, because you need to get a loan on it, and so on and so forth. So I had to start digging into it, and within about 6, 7 weeks of a lot of 24-hour a day digging, I found out that to build a house, or a fishing cabin for that matter, it takes you have to have engineered slab. You have to have engineered this, engineered that. You need to have, you've got to follow a certain protocol. And I've built stuff before, commercially and residentially, but at the same time, I hadn't done it to resell it. I did it for myself. And so by looking into that, and we were just going to start to build houses, just a very high quality Marine Corps style home. I want the best. I don't want anything but the best. And and by doing that, most of the people we build homes for, we had over 70% of the people we built homes for were referrals, or they build a second home or a third home, or their kids build a home, all because of us. But I realized and I identified take it from a big scope of homes. Okay, homes. What is it? 500 square feet or 5,000 square feet? So I found a market in homes for people that were downsizing about 7, 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago. They were widows, they were widowers, they were divorcees, they were single people, or it was a small family that wanted something very high end or very good, but they couldn't afford a large home. Not that a large home is any better than a small one, it's just a small version of it. And the dollar equivalent came out to where they could buy them. So, we built the one, then we built four the next year, just kind of fooling around. Then we went to 12, then we went to 16, and on up. But we really paid attention to quality, and most of our homes were between about 1,050 square feet and 1,500 square feet. That matched what was available at the time on the dollar basis and on the demand basis. So both of them came together, and that, along with our attention to quality and putting in the best that we could, over insulating, door handles instead of doorknobs, a lot of things. Since I'm disabled and largely paralyzed, was a gift for this, because I used it. I don't like to use the word used it, but I did use it, I guess, to say, Walter, do your parents come and visit very often, or do you have a brother, sister, family members? Okay, are any of them? And I know that you know you. I see you walking with a limp. Maybe we should take a look at putting in a ramp for you. It won't be any extra cost, but let's get a ramp or two in here so you can get into your house on a wheelchair or a walker later on. Well, that added value. And so when you add value to everything, that even makes it stronger.
Yeah, I love the example. So, and I will say is that what you used is iterative, process improvement to find the right value for the demand that is out there. And that is so very important that you also have to be pragmatic, that sometimes you come up with a brilliant idea that you think solves a problem, and then you end up going bankrupt. And then where the
Uh,
caution with that is, of course, is to test the market, to test your product, to pilot the solution that you have come up with, to make sure that that is exactly what the customer is seeking. And putting the lighters, as we call it, what you put into words of putting a ramp in, only makes it easier to get a referral. Sending to a referral, selling to a referral is that much easier, lower resistance to change than it is have to do advertising, which can be very, very expensive. So thanks for that story. So let's transition that now. Not everything is sunshine. And there are times that you run into roadblocks or times that you fall flat on your face because not every investment you ever make is the one that works out. We talked a little bit about resilience. So talk about how did you figure out to become a resilient person that you are today?
I think a lot of that simply comes from all the physical problems I went through that I should never have been able to walk. I should never have been able to live. I should never have been able to move my arms. This goes back even to the Marine Corps, and I spent a year in the Naval Hospital. And I mean, when I left there, I was on leg braces up to my rear end, and they told me I'll never be able to do anything. Now I came off a large farm. I soloed, started flying by myself when I was 14 years old. So I thought I'd be an ag pilot like my dad was, on top of everything else. Well, that kind of threw a big roadblock into everything because I couldn't fly. It just wasn't going to work. Climbing up on combines, climbing silos, doing all the stuff I did. So what else am I going to do? And I identified 2 or 3 different services and products in my hometown area and bounced right back with that. Now, the one thing I would say is that I would come up with another business that I had started about 91 roughly, and we did really good with it. But one of the things I added in there, we had a request for a lot of video work, and so I came up with a company called Quest Productions, and we did some video stuff. It was VHS, and beta was out, but we found a niche, but the niche wasn't strong enough. So I as soon as I could see that it wasn't there, which didn't take long. I'm talking, I was going to, hey, within a year, I should have been to point to this position here, and within about 8 months, I could see this isn't going good. I ran into somebody. I was telling him about some of the equipment we had. He said, "Wow, really? You got all that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "As a matter of fact, would you be interested in buying it if I was able to give you a good price on it?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to look." And he said, "You know what? I really would." So I ended up getting out of it, and I don't know that I lost $10 on all the equipment. And we had cameras and all everything we needed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it filled in, but by asking the question, sometimes you find the solution. And one thing I want to add, one thing that hasn't hurt me badly is I take baby steps. I go through things because my grandmother said a little thing back years ago: inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard is very hard. So don't jump into it with all your both feet head first, go into it crazy. Do your research, do your homework, look at it. Be willing to take the risk and be willing to take the loss if you have to. But if you go to it slowly, it's like walking into a swimming pool instead of jumping in head first, you're a lot safer.
Yeah, listen, I think that somebody actually who I don't really cared for as a person, but she did make a really strong statement that, to eat an elephant, you have to do it only one, but you can only
One
do it
bite at a time.
one time. And that is so important to try not to dilute ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Right? And that's why I said when we're talking about scoping a problem, is that we need to really focus in on that inch wide, mile deep. Is that what is it that we're trying to service? And how can we become the very best in that particular segment? The other part you talked about is that if you don't feel truly passionate about it, right? If you don't really love it, it's very difficult to sell it. And you have to be pragmatic about it, right? And you get lucky in the case of the video camera, video business, that you're able to unload that at no loss. But even sometimes you have to be pragmatic and unload it, even and take a loss, because it's better to get up and try again than to fall down and go down, so to speak, and
Definitely.
never recover from it again. So, as we're starting to wrap up, the show today, I want to talk about a couple of action items. So, uh, we have entrepreneurs listening, we have healthcare providers, and it doesn't make any difference what industry. What would you suppose for them to do as they lay their head on a pillow and they dream about something that they can do to make a difference in the world? What is a suggestion? What action steps could they take in order to come and bring that to life?
From a dream, from
From a
putting our
dream.
head on a pillow.
Lots of things start from a dream, right? It is about my slogan is dream big, act small, right? And
Uh,
sadly, by the way, Jay, is too many people don't dream. You ask what
I,
the dream is, I don't even know.
no,
You limit yourself.
well, the word dream, I, I don't ever think small. I always think big. I always think big. And the bigger the better. But you got to start out small.
Yeah.
You have to have that discipline to not, you're going to take, I want to walk 1,000 miles, but I know it's going to start out with one step.
Yep.
So no matter what that dream or that goal is, you have to have the discipline to understand that. But I don't. I had something else I was just going to throw in there too. But
I
the
think you alluded to that a little bit early in the conversation, and I wanted is that research, right? Is that
research,
small
yeah,
first step that you need to
that
take is to
that
really go out and understand the problem and go and see the competition and go talk to people and collect voice of the customer in order to really get to understand, is my dream a reality? Can that become a reality? And
well,
what is that first step?
that's right. That's where we were at. And what I wanted to say was I talked to somebody here recently who was asking about starting something, and I said, you know what? Before you do, find out what your competitor is. Find out what product they've got. What's the warranty on it? What's the lifespan on it? What's their service like? Talk to some of the people that they've done service for or provided a product for. Look and look and look and look and dig, and that's like going into combat, or that's like back being in the Marine Corps. I mean, it's like, in some of your background, I mean, we didn't land on D-Day. We didn't land without doing our research. Yes, it was hard. Yes, a lot of people died. But had we not done a lot of that before and knowing what was going on behind the scenes to the best of our ability, you're sunk. So research, read, pick it up, ask strangers. That's something I found over the years is ask people that what would your opinion be of a product or service. And something else that's very important is when you've worked with some of your people, or provided a product, provided a service, or a combination of, is bring them in or go to them, whichever way, and ask them, what did we do that was good? What did we not do that was good? What would you do different if it was yours? What is it that you see that we missed? Now, I admittedly have done that a lot, and I haven't missed much because I want to do it right. It's like when we were building homes. Everybody put in a 16-foot garage door. To get in a 16-foot garage door with today's cars and trucks is hard. So we always did an 18-foot. Always, always. We never used plastic valves in your bathrooms. We used brass. They cost 30 times as much, but they last forever. Now, So you provide something and you find out by asking.
Yeah, it is the differentiating delight as you talked about. In the business, there's a great Harvard business study around Ritz-Carlton. And people say, Ritz-Carlton, that's the hotel. Well, Ritz-Carlton actually was so good they almost went out of business. And they asked themselves the question, why is that? And they brought a Lean Six Sigma expert in and said, listen, when was the last time you started collecting voice of the customer? Really ask the customer what it is that they wanted.
Right.
And
Right.
through their program and their big turnaround was all about collecting detailed information on every single guest from the time they picked up the phone to the time their visit was done, to the point that they would put out 6 chocolates, 2 pure, 2 white, 2 milk, and count which chocolates were consumed and which bunnies were opened up and which one were left on display. So the next time that customer would come, it's no different than the 16 versus 18-foot garage door. They knew how to delight the customer, and I think that's really a good way to end the conversation today. Is that learning and understanding what value you can bring to a person, and to be niche, right? Be laser focused on what it is, and solving the problem starts by asking great questions. Jay, where can we find you?
I've got my email is Jay, my first name, at neverquittrying.com, which is a website that I've got that's being held and coming up. And then I've also written a book that's soon to be out within about 3 weeks called The Strength Within You. It's Always Too Soon to Quit Trying. So that really covers a lot of it, because people need to learn what strengths do they have in them. Where do you find strength? Sometimes strength can be in anger. Sometimes strength can be in pain. Sometimes it's in your upbringing. Sometimes it's, who knows? But you have to keep looking at it. And the book does cover some of my medical issues, but it's more about overcoming the obstacles and the adversities and what gets you through that. And when I was told I would never move again from the shoulders down, I would not accept that answer, And so I think that's got a lot to do with it. But Jay at neverquittrying.com, or got a book coming out, like I say, The Strength Within You, It's Always Too Soon to Quit Trying.
Excellent. Now, after 76 wonderful years of resilience and growth and development and making a difference, there has to be one slogan, one statement that you live by. What is that?
I think one of the biggest ones is simply the fact, other than never quit trying, or it's always too soon to quit trying. And I'm gonna throw a couple out here real quick. One is, if it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. That's a very important one, because you can't depend on something else. And last but not least is, what lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are small matters compared to what lies within us.
I love it. I think that's a high note to leave the show today. Jay, thank you very much for joining me. And again, thank you for your service to the country. I really, really appreciate it, as I hope many of our listeners do today. To all the audience, again, a strong, action takeaway over here, something you can take to heart. Look forward to our next session after this. Come back, share, follow, subscribe, tell the world about this, about our S.M.A.R.T podcast, because in every single podcast, there's 1 or 2 action takeaways from which you can learn, grow, and develop, and you too can reach your dream one small step at a time. Again, Jay, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate it.